What's the most messed up way your parents joked with you? My mom started telling me about my missing older brother Zach when I was 6 years old. She'd point to the empty bedroom at the end of the hall and say that used to be his room before he disappointed her. She kept one of his old baseball trophies on the mantle as a reminder of what happens to children who don't behave. Zach was my favorite, she'd say while brushing my hair before school. So talented and handsome, but he started talking back and getting bad grades. I had to send him away. I believed every word because I was just a little kid who trusted his mother. She'd shake her head sadly whenever I asked where Zach went. She said the state had special places for children whose parents didn't want them anymore. If I wasn't careful, I'd end up there too, and she'd have to find another boy to be her son. The fear shaped my entire childhood. I got straight A's and never talked back. I did extra chores without being asked and always said please and thank you. Mom reinforced the story constantly. When I got a B+ on a spelling test, she said I was reminding her of Zach. When I forgot to take out the trash, she'd stand by the empty bedroom and pretend to cry. The manipulation worked because I doubled my efforts to be the perfect child every single time. By the time I turned 10, the story had evolved. Now Zach was living on the streets because no foster family wanted a bad kid. She'd point out homeless people when we drove through the city and say one of them might be him. I'd press my face against the car window searching for a boy who looked like me. That's what happens when mothers give up on their children, she'd say. They end up cold and hungry with nobody to love them. I started having nightmares about being abandoned. In my dreams, I'd wake up in a cardboard box while my mom drove by without stopping. The fear followed me everywhere, making me anxious about every small mistake. Teachers praised my behavior, but I was constantly terrified of slipping up. One day I found an old photo album in the basement. I flipped through hoping to find pictures of Zach, but there were none. Every family photo showed my parents with just me. No empty space where another child should be. When I asked mom about it, she said she destroyed all photos of Zach because they were too painful. Middle school brought new fears because mom said that's when Zach really started going downhill. Every time I felt normal preteen rebellion bubbling up, I'd remember the empty bedroom and swallow my feelings. My friends were starting to push boundaries while I remained terrified of disappointing my mother. I was walking home from school on a particularly bad day when everything changed. I'd gotten detention for something that wasn't my fault and knew mom would compare me to Zach again. I was cutting through the park trying to delay the inevitable lecture when I saw them. A man and teenage boy were sitting by a tent near the playground. They had sleeping bags and a shopping cart full of belongings. The boy looked about 16 with messy hair and worn clothes, but it was his face that stopped me cold. He had the same brown eyes and dimpled chin that I saw in the mirror every morning. I stood frozen, staring at what could only be my brother. We had the same nose and jawline, and even the same way of tilting our heads. The boy noticed me staring, and our eyes met across the grass. Recognition flickered across his face, and he slowly stood up. The man beside him grabbed his arm, looking worried, but the boy shook him off. He walked toward me with this strange expression like he was seeing a ghost. I wanted to run, but my feet wouldn't move. When he got close enough, I could see the tears in his eyes. "What's your name?" he asked quietly. "Daniel," I whispered back. He nodded like that confirmed something. "I'm Zach. How old are you?" 12. "She had another one," he said to himself, then louder. "Is she still telling you about me? About how I was bad and she had to get rid of me?" My whole world was spinning. Zach was real and standing right in front of me, but he was supposed to be older, not just 4 years ahead of me. Mom had always made it sound like he'd been gone for decades, not just since I was a toddler. "She says you were her favorite until you disappointed her," I managed to say. Zach laughed, but it was bitter and sad. "She told me the same thing about a brother named James. Said I had to be perfect or I'd end up like him. I believed it for years until I realized there was no James. Then she had you, and the cycle started over." The man who'd been with Zach walked over slowly. Zach introduced him as Tom, a social worker who'd been helping him get off the streets. Tom had found Zach 2 years ago after he aged out of foster care. "She didn't send me away because I was bad," Zach said. "She sent me away because she's sick. She can't love without controlling." When I started thinking for myself at 13, she called CPS and said I was violent. Made up whole stories about me threatening her. I felt sick listening to him describe our mother's lies. The empty room, the baseball trophy, all of it was designed to keep me in line through fear. Zach pulled out a worn photo from his pocket and showed it to me. It was him as a little boy with our mom. The same mom who'd convinced me he was her biggest failure. "She'll do it to you too," Zach warned. That's when my mom called. "Where are you, sweetie?" Full story on channel linked below.